Everyone that works for or has ever worked for the ATF belongs in prison. That's an audacious claim, but I really believe it. This is one of the most illegal organizations in the US right now, and we really do need to get rid of it. As we get into the true purpose of the ATF, as I try to back up my claim here, we need to realize a few things. No one ever makes a decision based on just one reason, one purpose. We all have a whole bunch of factors that come into play for any decision that we make, even small ones. And when it applies to an organization like the ATF, every decision that they make has a lot of things going on too. So we're going to try to get down to a lot of the core ones. It starts back in 1934 with the passage of the National Firearms Act, and you had a bunch of police officers that just previously had been doing two things, one that was good, one that was bad. One was they were dealing with some very violent criminals, and these violent criminals were using new equipment that was more effective than what the police had in some cases, or what maybe a lot of civilians had. And you also had them backing up some really bad legislation. So they were really breaking the U.S. Constitution by cracking down on just kind of alcohol in general. And these were the same sorts of people dealing with this. So we had a new class of criminals, and we had actually the police kind of doing criminal activity themselves by dealing with something that they really should not have. And these are the people that were drafted originally to be the new ATF. These are the people that were going to control alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. And what they initially came up with in the legislature was that they needed to deal with weapons that, again, were more effective. So we're talking about machine guns. These are fully automatic weapons. Silencers or suppressors that could make weapons quieter and just a little bit less easy to detect. And they were dealing with smaller weapons that were in some of your larger calibers. So a shotgun with a short barrel, or a little rifle chambered sort of weapon like this one that they call an SBR, short-barreled rifle. So it has a more powerful cartridge, but it's cut down somehow in order to be shorter and more concealable. Now, these are things that, as we've kind of come along, yes, they would be effective for criminals, and they were very effective for criminals. However, they're also perfectly effective for just normal folks. And if we're looking at this from a purist point of view, the Second Amendment to the Constitution simply says that the right of the people to keep and bear arms, and it doesn't give any limits on what those arms are, that it won't be infringed. It won't be trespassed upon at all. So from the very inception of the ATF, it's all completely illegal. It is against the U.S. Constitution. And this has a couple of different kind of aspects to it. You can see that someone that is well-meaning is trying to curb violence, to protect the police officers, to keep certain weapons off the streets, as they like to say in all these press conferences. And so they may actually have good intent. However, that's not going to be everybody in this case. The people that are at the top of this thing, think about during the time of Woodrow Wilson, think about FDR and all these others that are pushing this progressive narrative. They have been looking for reasons for the longest time to try to keep the people into a smaller and smaller box, just to push the people, the citizens of the U.S., into just a lesser existence, to make them less free, and to be able to control everything from the top, to be able to tell people progressively what to do, and to create narrower corridors for people to move through. And so this is going to meet that function as well. You may have the well-meaning people that are just doing something wrong by controlling these things against the Constitution, but then you have people who it was really their express purpose to break the Constitution. And we can see how all of the alphabet agencies that are in place right now, that's really what they are there to do. They're there to stand on the throat of one or more of the elements of the Bill of Rights. So it's there to actually break the law. The IRS is there to break the Fourth Amendment. The Second Amendment is broken by the ATF and a couple of others. And so this is power versus principle. This is the government versus the people and versus the contract that we have with them, the U.S. Constitution. This carries over perfectly into what the ATF is doing right now. So this right here is a legal weapon. This is an AR-15 carbine. It is very effective. And this is something that the ATF and just the general power structure in Washington has been trying to get rid of for the longest time. Everything about this, the fact that it is semi-automatic, you don't have to, rack it between each shot, it will automatically load each round. It uses magazines that are larger than standard. You can get into magazines that maybe have 60, 100 rounds. It's very comfortable, it's easy to use, it is effective, and we do use these in war because it is effective. And then we get it, okay, so right now that is currently legal, and they are trying to find ways to make it illegal without going through the legislature. They just want to be able to write little rules, regardless of what the incoming nominee for ATF director has said, where he was saying that they don't legislate from the organization. That's actually what they do. They just kind of create their own little rules to make things apply where they want them to fit. But okay, so this one is currently legal. They want to make it illegal. But let's take a look at something that actually is illegal right now. If I were to take this upper on this little guy right here, this is actually considered a pistol, even though it looks like a little short-barreled rifle. This has an 8-inch barrel, and yeah, it has all the other good AR-15 parts. You can put giant mags in here, but this is considered a pistol because this is not actually a stock. This is a brace that's intended for one-handed use. That's kind of what its initial creation was for. So this will actually wrap around the forearm, and you can shoot very stably with this. And yeah, this is totally legal because it is considered a pistol and not a short-barreled rifle. If I were to take the stock off this guy right here, or take the lower off here and swap it onto here, which would take just 2 pins, it would take a few seconds to be able to swap it on there, suddenly I would be guilty of breaking the law. I would have created an SBR, a short-barreled rifle, and I could go to prison for 10 years, be a felon, and be barred the use of any firearms, and of course all the other things that come along with being a felon, that would come along with me for the rest of my life. And the ATF would love to see that. Now, what is this really? What is it that they're trying to control? Originally, yes, there were bad guys that had short-barreled rifles, they had full autos, they had all kinds of stuff, and it was effective. But the effectiveness doesn't make you good or bad. This little guy right here, if I were to put a stock on it, if I were to keep it here with the pistol brace that's on it, this is a wonderfully effective little tool for in my house. Yes, I could use this for criminal activity, I guess. It'd be a little bit easier to conceal and I could do bad stuff. But the real deal here is that this is effective in a whole bunch of places. This is going to be much better for turning corners in my house if I'm dealing with, somebody that has broken into my house. This is going to turn corners really easily. It's going to fit really close up to my body. I'm not going to be sticking out, and it's just going to be very easy to swing, get onto target. So I can do good work with this, or I can do evil. And that's one of the biggest problems that we have with the ATF is that they don't make distinctions like that. All they do is just assume that if I were to put a stock on this, that it would be evil. And the pistol brace that you see back here, they're trying to cast this as evil now and get rid of it and consider this an SBR. And then if I were to keep this, then suddenly I would be the bad guy. And they do this with everything. Silencers. Silencers protect your hearing. They protect the hearing of the people around you. They keep the report down for certain herd animals. So like if you're dealing with a whole, maybe a pack of animals out there while you're hunting, you can be extremely quiet about it, and it kind of confuses them so that you can deal with maybe a whole sounder of hogs or a whole pack of coyotes. They don't really hear that loud report, and so you can actually be more effective out in the field. And that's kind of what the ATF does, is they find things that are effective and want to get rid of them. Here's an analogy that's not quite right, but it should kind of head us in the right direction. What about the getaway cars of bad guys? What if their preferred car was the Dodge Charger with a big Hemi engine in it? If we had an organization within the government that was designed to prevent getaway cars and to slow these things down, then what they could do is they could find certain features of the Dodge Charger and say that those were illegal. Okay, so first off, we make the Dodge Charger itself illegal. We make maybe that Hemi engine, anything that has that Hemi engine would have to go. Anything that's considered a muscle car, maybe it has certain stylistic features, we're going to get rid of those. And if this sounds ridiculous, this is exactly what they have done with the firearms that you've seen on my bench and here on the channel. Things that they control, things that they don't. It's based on actually a lot of cosmetic features in some cases, like where the grip is, and if it's attached to the buttstock, all kinds of silly things like that. And if you look at the California compliant rifles, this is a perfect example of how you can still have a Dodge Charger as long as it looks like a Toyota Camry, or just all kinds of goofy things like that. And here is where we get down to one of the purposes of the ATF. The ATF, like I mentioned, is there to try to get, certain dangerous weapons off the street. That's how they can kind of salve their own consciences. It is something that is there to abridge the Second Amendment. It's actually there to trespass. It's there to break the law and to get government power pushed down onto the people. It's there to break the contract. And then it's also there to exist. You can think of an organization as an organism, as a single organism, and you can apply Maslow's hierarchy of needs to it. And at the very root level is security. An organization, an organism, wants to continue to exist. It needs to have a secure foundation. It wants to know that it can continue into the future, that it can grow. Its goals are really the same as an individual person or as a family. It wants to be stable, it wants to meet its own needs, and it wants to continue to grow. And that is what the ATF is really doing right now. It is attempting to grow. They've been on kind of shaky footing from the very beginning, where they weren't sure, is this part of the FBI? The FBI has tried to kind of, wrangle them and keep them as one little in-house agency. They've tried to break out on their own, and they're still really trying to find that footing so that everybody there can continue to get their pensions, can continue to, prove that they have a reason for existing, continue to have their jobs. And that's all this stuff with the AR-15 and with short-barreled rifles, all these new things that are going to come into play with larger magazines, those are all there to make new illegal things for these guys to continue to regulate. And that's really what it has been from the beginning. It's there to give jobs to people that had been doing, in a lot of cases, bad things, back in the past. And this continues through to today. My emotions or my thoughts on this subject really don't matter all that much. The true core of it is that the ATF is illegal. It is there to break the Second Amendment to the Constitution. It's there to break the law. And this organization needs to be disbanded, and its members need to be treated the way that they have been treating us. They need to be put into prison. And I've heard a bunch of people say this argument that their local ATF guy is cool. He's just fine. He's just there to enforce the laws that are on the books and that everything's all right. But if they were applying this to us, like say someone's cool and has accidentally built an SBR or has accidentally done something the ATF doesn't like, do they care? No. That is their food. That is their fodder. They are there. The whole organization is there to put that person into prison, to give them fines, to make them felons for the rest of their lives, to keep, to actually take away their rights as U.S. citizens. And I think that we should treat the ATF the exact same way. I think it makes total sense. And just because you have somebody that's pleasant, it doesn't mean that they can't be part of an illegal organization acting against the people and breaking the law. It is time for the ATF to go. And so I recommend to all of you that during this time, of course, we have the wrong people in power in DC. They're not going to get rid of the ATF right now. But as soon as we do flip the House and the Senate, it's about time they actually did something for us. This thing has got to go. So we need to start to petition these folks, only bring in people that are going to be interested in dissolving the ATF and getting rid of these illegal laws. And I think that maybe more on a local level we need to deal with this first. So here in Oklahoma, we actually have legislation in place that is going to bar any future actions by the ATF. So if they come up with new rules, new things that we're supposed to do, like maybe we're supposed to turn in our pistol braces, or they come up with magazine rules, here in Oklahoma, at least as far as our legislature goes, we are not supposed to abide by that. We can just kind of do whatever we want within the current ATF rules. So I think we need to see more of that here in the US and more of this pushback. And like I mentioned in the other video, we haven't really seen how the rubber meets the road on this yet, because who is actually supreme? Is it the state or is it the feds? When it comes down to an actual court case where, say, maybe they make a big magazine or a normal size magazine like this one illegal, what's actually going to happen in court? Will I if I continue to have this, they make it illegal, I continue to have it, the ATF comes after me, and my state says, no, you can't. How's it actually going to work out in court? Is the federal government going to come out on top, or is my state going to actually be able to defend me? And I really don't know. There have been some, kind of small cases out there that indicate that the ATF, can kind of take over things and, be the one that comes out on top. But maybe with something as big as this blanket one here in Oklahoma, that's directly against the ATF, then yeah, maybe we can see how it goes. I hope that we don't have to. Let's just get rid of the whole organization. Thanks a bunch for watching, you guys. I hope that you liked this video. If you did, please share it with others. I am sick of all of these organizations. The IRS needs to be reined in. All the alphabet agencies need to be reined in. This is all against the people. It's against the contract. It's breaking the law, and it all has to go. I don't know how that's going to happen, but let's do it. Thanks a bunch, you guys. Oh, and thank you to patrons of the Destructive Arts for making videos like these possible. I do have one video that I'm going to be releasing here soon, maybe two. I'm trying to chat with two different guys that have been entrapped by the ATF. This is something that has happened quite a bit in the US. You can find all kinds of stories on this. It's not going to be produced by your mainstream media, but what the ATF likes to do, like in the case of Randy Weaver, this is a really good one, they get people to perform illegal acts and tell them that it's going to be fine, just go ahead and do it. They may actually give them paperwork and everything and say, yeah, just go ahead and do this thing, it's fine. And then as soon as they do it, then they throw them into prison. And I have two of these instances that I've heard some kind of overview tales of. I'm trying to get more details on them, and hopefully I'll bring them to you guys soon. These are ones that have not been out in the media at all. So yeah, anyway, I'll try to get those knocked out. I will see you guys in the next video.
Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe. Even if you didn't like this particular content, go ahead and subscribe. There's probably something coming that's more up your alley. Check out this playlist right here. This is going to have videos in a similar vein to what you just watched. These two videos we cherry-picked for you. And finally, The Social Regressive is on Patreon. So, you can become a patron of the Destructive Arts and earn some goodies while helping us to provide high-quality videos just by kicking us a few bucks a month. Thanks a bunch for your patronage.